Good afternoon. It's Thursday, January 21. I'm Giovanni Dennis with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're joining us online at onespotmedia.com. There are questions this afternoon about projections that the economy could grow by 3 to 8% in the 2021-2022 financial year. This following contractions of 10 to 18% in the 2020-2021 financial year. Now, speaking last evening at the Mayberry Investment Forum, Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clarke argued that the projection is not too optimistic. He said information from the Central Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and other statistical agencies locally have suggested a positive outlook for the Jamaican economy despite the uncertainties caused by COVID-19.
Very realistic. And the biggest indicator of that, Dan, is something I mentioned in the presentation, where we saw construction in the middle of the pandemic grow by 7% to the quarter ended September. And that's a quarter where the government's contribution to construction was quite muted because we would have cut our capital budget. So, that's just an indication of what is happening. The nature of this economic decline is not a result of any structural deficiencies in Jamaica or elsewhere that we have imported. It is a result of the fact that we are unable to go about our business, right, without social distancing. And so,
however, the finance minister says it could take 2 to 4 years for the economy to recover to pre-COVID levels.
To do is to keep that up, and within a period of 2 to 4 years, we are likely, very likely, to retain the levels of 2019. We may get a positive surprise, and as some of the ranges that have been quoted by the BOJ are very wide, from 3 all the way to 5, or to 8 rather. And so we could get a positive surprise that it's actually higher than the 3. Let's wait and see.
In the meantime, the finance minister is tight-lipped whether Jamaicans will be asked to pay new taxes in the upcoming financial year. However, he has expressed confidence that there will be increased inflows to the government's coffers. Dr. Clarke says that projection will be used to craft the 2021-2022 budget.
All of the agencies responsible for economic growth projections are projecting growth for next year. Yes. So you can expect that that will be a feature of our planning. And, revenues grow by your underlying real growth, and they also grow by your projected inflation amount. So we will have a growth in revenues next year, no doubt. We're going to have to prioritize what we spend on. And our priorities, obviously, are going to be to ensure that we recover as soon as possible. Key to recovery is ensuring a healthy population, and so we're going to have to find that money for the vaccines that the Minister of Health spoke about, and that has to be a priority. But there are other things that we'll be working on, and you have to pay attention.
Now, on Tuesday, Dr. Clarke unveiled a $3.5 billion spending cut for the current fiscal year. To other news now, Mayor of Port Maria, Richard Creary, is hitting back at critics who ascribe the ongoing illegal street-side vending in the St. Mary capital to his municipal corporation's failures. At a recent meeting, the chairman unapologetically outlined harsh new measures he expects will put a stop to the problem. Herman Green reports.
Illegal street vending is a problem in every parish, but in Port Maria, St. Mary, the problem is rapidly escalating, with persons setting up stalls or spreading market produce, clothes and other things on every corner and sidewalk.
Even toilet paper, drinks, cereal, all supermarket open up now on the street.
The range of inappropriate items is one thing, but Mayor of Port Maria, Richard Creary, notes that the number of illegal vendors and the hours have also increased.
In the last month or two, the numbers have increased exponentially. The other night, they used to have probably in the night 1 or 2 or 3 carts parked on the road. The other night I counted 9. And I'm talking just those that stay on the road every night.
He says he has been chastised by pedestrians and motorists who complain about the obstructions. He says they say his inaction or laziness is festering the lawlessness.
Sometimes I walk on the road, sometimes I almost step out in the vehicle then. So if we get them off of the road, we will have more. What about the market? Me talk all the while, what about the market?
It's why Mayor Creary has orchestrated a new operation to end all street vending in the town. Firstly, vendors adjacent to the meat market will be relocated to some 20 stalls that were constructed in the new market.
Then the next step, which will involve collaboration between ourselves, the police, National Solid Waste Management Authority, and to some extent the health department, is to rid the streets of Port Maria of all the other vendors.
He says the strict measure will mean all vendors must sell inside or on the market compound. Strong action will be taken against persons who are found in breach of the law.
I know there will be resistance, but we will have to be prepared for this resistance. I will be called the wickedest person on earth. I am prepared to take that backlash.
He says more details of the planned operation will follow discussions with the other collaborative bodies.
And Mayor Creary is adamant that the plan for tough new measures against illegal street vending in the parish capital is warranted. The mayor outlined the plan at the recent municipal cooperation meeting. Now, in defending the move, Mr. Creary explained that for years, vendors including cart operators have been against using the market without just cause.
In December, we took a decision and we said, to communicate to the cart persons, we will allow you to drive those carts into the market and you utilize them in there. Not one person took up the offer.
Now, he suggests that the municipal corporation has sought to meet the vendors halfway in relocating them to the structured facility and establish law and order on the streets. However, he says the vendors come up with new reasons to disobey each time.
What you provide, the vendors want to be on the streets where they are closest to their customers. So I am told by Mr. Davis that one of the ladies said, unless we paint the front of the market, they're not going in there. Now, you were rich. First, it was roof leaking, no bathroom, this, that, the other. Now, all of a sudden, brand new market. But if we don't paint the front edge, they're not going in there.
Now, with dozens of vendors now lining the roadways, the new plan will see the police, the National Solid Waste Management Authority, and the Health Department clamping down on vendors found in breach of the law. 2 men were killed in separate incidents in the Lacovia Police Division in St. Elizabeth on Wednesday. They have been identified as 63-year-old Raphael Robertson of Shiloh and 42-year-old John Bolin of Brigade Street, Black River, both in St. Elizabeth. Mr. Robertson was shot after he and another man were accosted by a security guard at a fish farm in Barton sometime after 5 in the afternoon. Now, they were allegedly seen stealing fish from a pond. One of the men allegedly advanced on the security guard with a machete, who responded by shooting in their direction. Mr. Robertson was hit while the other man escaped. Now, in the meantime, Mr. Bolin was found with bullet wounds at his house sometime after 7 p.m. by residents of Brigade Street in Black River. He was pronounced dead at hospital. And it's now time for a break here on the Midday News, but please stay with us. We'll have much more when we return. Welcome back, and we're continuing the news. As the government moves to have the National Identification System NIDS implemented, it's touting the benefits that such a card will have for its citizens. Lawmakers are hoping with those benefits, Jamaicans will buy into the program. Sandy Williams reports.
Significant benefits are on the horizon for Jamaicans under the National Identification System. One such benefit is the ability for Jamaicans to travel overseas with just their identification cards when NIDS is implemented. According to Project Director Warren Vernon, this will be possible as the all-in-one identification card will use the International Civil Aviation Organization standard. Another benefit being touted is that it will become more difficult for identity theft to take place. This is a crime which has been on the increase in the island. Speaking at Parliament's Joint Select Committee on January 5, Member of the NIDS project team, Sharika Hemmings Allison, noted that the Passport, Immigration and Citizenship Agency, PICA, reported 2,499 passport fraud cases between 2009 and 2019, with more than 300 cases in 2019 alone. It's a problem the NIDS team believes will be addressed with this identification card.
We have so many Jamaicans now who have suffered from identity theft, and their bank accounts have been depleted because they're able to use, by whatever means, identification that has been stolen. So with the NIDS identity, probably the best benefit, if I might put it that way, is that the individual will have a unique identity and no one can steal it.
Another benefit is the ability to do most of their current transactions with the Jamaica Tax Administration online. As it is now, several services can only be done in person at the Jamaica tax offices.
In the future, we anticipate that persons will be able to sell and transfer their motor vehicles online, renew driver's license, etc. And we are currently in discussions with tax admin, and at some point in the future, I'm sure the commissioner will be able to announce that there are a number of services that we are looking at. For example, they are looking at motor vehicle registration, the renewal of motor vehicle license, there's certification of fitness, renewal of driver's license, GCT, all of those services that you are now required to go in line at the tax office.
Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
The Office of the Political Ombudsman is pushing for increased powers, this to allow the holder of that office to submit reports to the Director of Public Prosecutions for a ruling. Now, for many years, political observers have argued that the Office of the Political Ombudsman lacked teeth to deal effectively with breaches of the Political Code of Conduct. One such is that of vote buying, which is a sore point for the Political Ombudsman.
The matter of vote buying continues to be a poison pill in our political space. I received numerous reports and a few complaints about vote buying in the recent elections. And
Ms. Parchment Brown says from her conversations with the public, she has realized that persons are afraid to speak on the issue. She added that it is not clear how that section of the law is enforced, noting that most pieces of legislation related to criminal breaches require police enforcement.
Vulnerable, you get some information, but not always enough to be able to act. However, I believe an office like the Director of Public Prosecutions and the Jamaica Constabulary Force, framed a little bit differently around these issues, could have a positive impact.
To other news now, Jamaica recorded 63 new COVID-19 cases Wednesday, bringing the country's total to 14,500. Their ages range from 1 to 100 years. St. Catherine, St. James, Manchester had the highest number of new cases. In the meantime, the island's death toll remains at 331. The ministry is, however, reporting one coincidental death, while another death is under investigation. The health ministry says 113 patients remain hospitalized with the respiratory illness. 11 are in critical condition. President of the People's National Party, Mark Golding, says the process of healing the party is moving in the right direction. The comment follows a church service held at the Boulevard Baptist Church last Sunday. Mr. Golding, who was on a tour at the St. Elizabeth High School, spoke about a unity committee dealing with matters of internal conflicts involving its members.
We had a wonderful recommitment church service at Boulevard Baptist Church last Sunday, which was well attended and well followed online. And essentially, I think people want to see the party being active. They want to see the party moving in a clear direction of progress. And as they see that, I expect some of the detractors will find their way back home. So I'm very optimistic about that.
And Mr. Golding was speaking at the St. Elizabeth Technical High School, Stets. Now, the Jamaica Fire Brigade has responded to the cry for help from residents of Smith Avenue in Portland. A week ago, the residents pleaded for assistance to fix a leaking fire hydrant. They complained that water from the leakage was causing damage to their properties as well as exposing them to the dengue virus. However, upon investigating the matter, the brigade found that its hydrant was not leaking and the water was actually running from a damaged NWC valve. Public Relations Officer at the Jamaica Fire Brigade, Emilia Ibanks, says his team has repaired the valve.
Leaking. It's actually a National Water Commission valve, which is pretty close, in close proximity to our valve, that was actually leaking. We fixed the valve, and as precautionary measure, we changed our valve as well, because that valve has been there for a while. So even though it wasn't leaking, we in order to avoid a situation like that happening again, we repaired the NWC valve and we changed our valve.
The nation's leaders came together Thursday morning for the 41st staging of the National Leadership Prayer Breakfast. The event was held without the usual fellowship over food due to COVID-19 restrictions, with messages also being delivered virtually. It was held under the theme Keep Hope Alive. Governor General Sir Patrick Allen was the event's patron.
Our theme for the National Leadership Prayer Breakfast 2021 implies the question, why do we need to keep hope alive? Hope is a strong belief and faith that our circumstances will improve and we will persevere.
Now, as is customary, the Prime Minister Andrew Holness and the Leader of the Opposition, Mark Golding, delivered the first and second lessons respectively. Prayers were delivered by 3 ministers representing each county: Cornwall, Middlesex and Surrey. Now, annually donations are made towards a national project. This year, they will be sponsoring tablets for students. Financial Secretary Darlene Morrison has indicated that there is no allocation for a stimulus package for any sector or the unemployed in the third supplementary estimates of expenditure for the current financial year. Ms. Morrison was questioned this morning on the plans of the Finance Ministry to provide further assistance for those affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Chairman of the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee, Michael Phillips, raised the issue during the review of the revised budget.
From the Ministry of Finance, is there any intention of another fiscal package for one, companies out there, and 2, for just the unemployed and poor?
All right, so the Minister will address that question for you, sir.
When he comes to deal with this?
Right, so there's nothing in this supplementary. So
yeah, that's why I'm asking.
Will be addressed by the Minister.
Now, President of the Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce, Janet Silveira, recently called for the government to consider another stimulus package for the tourism sector. Ms. Silveira said the sector was headed for more challenging times with new travel requirements in key source markets. The news overseas now: at least 4,367 new coronavirus deaths and over 184,700 new cases were reported in the United States on Wednesday. As of this morning, more than 24,400,000 people in the United States have been affected with the coronavirus. It's why United States President Joe Biden is now turning his focus fully on containment measures of the respiratory illness. More from the CNN.
President Joe Biden says he plans to make the fight against the coronavirus a top priority for his administration.
The issue that he wakes up every day focused on is getting the pandemic under control. The issue he goes to bed every night focused on is getting the pandemic under control.
Hours after being sworn into office, Biden signed an executive order that imposes a mask mandate for those on federal property. Although presidents can't force cities and states to follow suit with mask mandates, Biden hopes people in the U.S. will still wear facial coverings when appropriate.
To combat the deadly virus, the president launched his 100-day masking challenge, asking Americans to do their part and mask up for 100 days.
This presidential push comes as the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reports the U.S. has confirmed more than 140 cases of a virus variant first identified in the United Kingdom. The CDC's latest ensemble forecast also projects up to 508,000 COVID-19 deaths in the U.S. by February 13th. Sherilyn Hoffman's parents, Brett and Carol Stevenson of Kansas, died from COVID within hours of each other.
COVID is real. I feel like people need to wear a mask. You need to take it into your heart that it's not just about you, not to be selfish.
In sports, 2 Jamaicans have been retained while 3 were released by their respective franchises for the new season of the Indian Premier League T20 tournament. Hard-hitting left-handed batsman Chris Gayle will spend his 3rd season with the Kings 11 Punjab after being retained. The franchise has, however, released left-arm seamer Sheldon Cottrell, who was one of the most expensive players at last year's auction, where he was picked up for over $1 million. All-rounder Andre Russell is the other Jamaican retained and will remain with the Kolkata Knight Riders. The other Jamaicans not retained were Fabian Allen and O'Shane Thomas, who were released by the Sunrisers Hyderabad and Rajasthan Royals respectively. 6 other West Indians were retained by their franchises as Jason Holder, who came in as a replacement player, has now secured a contract with Sunrisers. Shimron Hetmeyer will remain with Delhi Capitals, with KKR holding on to Sunil Narayan. Dwayne Bravo, now retained by Chennai Super Kings, and Mumbai Indians securing Karen Pollard. Nicholas Puran will once again play alongside Gayle at Kings 11. Keema Paul and Sherfane Rutherford, the other West Indians released. Now the players retained by a franchise can, however, be added to the list at the IPL auction next month. And that's the Midday News. I'm Giovanni Dennis on behalf of the news, sports and production teams. Have a good evening.